Hello and welcome to Mind the Model. I'm Nathan Guerra, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Emily Krellin.
Howdy.
How are you? How's it going?
I wanted to ask you, because last time we caught up, you mentioned something pretty interesting about training your Gemini into being a bit like petty bitch. Like, tell me more.
I found a prompt online that someone suggested, and I might have even adjusted it. But basically, the idea was to try and remove some of the sycophancy that you get from an AI.
Yeah.
And so what I did is I put in Gemini, I think they call it like a master prompt. And most of the solutions have the ability to kind of give your AI overarching instructions. And I told it to be harsh and not sycophantic and to be critical. And I didn't really remember that I did that. And because I used Gemini in about 4 different accounts, and I came back to that account later, and I was asking it to, I had to submit a bio for something, and I was like, hey, help me craft my bio. Tell me what you think about it. And it came back and said, your bio is insufficient. This is not good enough. You need to change your bio. And it was incredibly harsh. And I had completely forgotten that I had changed it. And I realized I made like super mean AI. And it was just as easy as like changing it like a couple of words, and I made a very, very mean AI. And I like criticism, but even I was like, okay, maybe I need to scale it back a little bit because I have gone too far into the mean AI realm. So yes, I have changed my master prompt and made it a little bit less harsh, and it seems to be better now. It still isn't sycophantic, which I'm looking to avoid, but It was a bit of an interesting period there where I was like, my gosh, how really mean.
Well, yeah. I mean, ChatGPT 4 went through that sycophancy stage, and Sam Altman came out with a tweet
apparently they're bringing it back. People liked it.
They're bringing it back for people that liked it, along with erotica. So interesting flex there by OpenAI. But it's funny about the master prompts, because no matter how many times I have said, do not use a bloody M dash, still does it. And then I never use M dashes. I use N dash, so the shorter version. And I have for all of my writing time, since I've been writing online, which years and years and years. And so I have to go back and find the M dash, delete it, use the N dash. So.
And you put it in the master prompt as well?
I put it in the master prompt. Every time I prompt, I use it again. And for some reason, it just doesn't seem to take the hint.
Well, maybe it's time to try some Gemini.
I think I need to dabble. But yeah, let's try it out. Hey, you know what? This is actually a great chat this morning. I'm so excited about this guest. The person we are about to bring on, her and I worked together as Unlimited ambassadors a few years ago. So I got to meet her in a really interesting context of working alongside each other and volunteering and trying to do some work for good in the advertising and marketing industry. And she is so well known for just being a thought leader in this space, a bit of an oracle of knowledge, a researcher background who's just so smart. I have so much admiration for this woman. We have Gay Leroy joining us today, and Gay is the CEO of IAB Australia, which is the peak advocacy, research, and standards body, which represents digital media and advertising. Gay has worked in the media industry for 30 years and in the digital ad industry since portals were cool, pop-ups were rampant, and a unnamed TV exec told her that internet advertising would never be worth more than $100 million. Let's see how that panned out. But prior to running the IAB, Gay held senior roles at Fairfax, Nielsen, 9MSN, and Gateway Research. Gay, welcome to Mind the Model.
Hey, Nate. Hey, that I felt like ChatGPT was writing my bio and intro there. It was so lovely. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I had a similar conversation with my wife once. She was like, this internet thing's never going to be big. And so we've proven them both wrong.
I know, but I do have to remind myself now I'm the old person. I'm probably the old TV exec in the room. And every time there's a new trend that comes through, I have to pull back and my natural cynicism, I'll allow it to fly. So it feels like we're talking about AI today, which is one that I feel will stick, whereas there was a bit more cynicism, I think, around the metaverse and some of the earlier trends.
Okay, to start this off, we want to run you through a couple quick fire questions. Talk to us. What is your favorite AI model and why? What's the last thing you used it for?
I have stuck to ChatGPT. I must say it has. It's very hard to move away, even though I play with different things. Gets to know you, you get to know it. So I continue along that line.
And what's the last thing you use it for?
I am currently going through a billion trinkets in my parents' house as I get ready to sell it. And you would not believe how many versions of Royal Dalton little figurines there are in the world. And I have no idea if they're worthless or worth something. So I'm going through and cataloguing that, getting ready to either give them away or sell them, depending on what they're worth. So there's a lot of it's saving an incredible amount of time. Writing descriptions, doing all the stuff. It can help me create a spreadsheet to upload into eBay. So it's been a joy.
The very last person we interviewed was basically doing the exact same thing.
I actually had a chat to Paul Blackburn this week.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh no, you used the example, but I'm like, it's a good example. I'm going to use it again. So
now, do you have a particular prompting methodology or approach?
It's basically just to train it like a line trainer, and I have in mind all the time there's a scene, and I brought this up at an event the other day, and I think everyone was way too young, but I'm a huge 30 Rock fan. And
Love
there
it.
is a scene in 30 Rock where Jenna is trying to impress a European royal who has a lot of money, who is in a wheelchair and can't move. And basically he tells her to dance, and then it's, jazz, cabaret, tap. So it's a little bit like that. It's just that variety piece and working it as hard as I possibly can. Take 10 times to really, really train it, because it, as we know, all the models don't necessarily take that on board long term. So you need to just keep going back and honing it possible.
So your average prompt, you'll type something in and then ask it another question and a follow-up and a follow-up. And that's the kind of approach?
It takes me back to my early theatre experience. So I used to do drama a lot as a kid, and it's improv, right? It's like it's yes and, but
yes
and
and
it's like, try harder, work with me here. So that's my approach, and I just want to make sure that creativity piece is in there. Just it keeps my brain alive by going, what's the new angle here, and just making sure there's nothing too generic around anything that's being made or created.
Have you used it recently and found yourself doing a bit of an AI fail? Like you tried to get something out of it and just bang your head up against a wall. It didn't seem to work for you?
Yeah, look, I'm a spreadsheet girl, and structured data is not great. So I'm still sort of, and look, I haven't, I guess we'll get onto this, but the amount of time to explore what actually works and the right models and the right tools, it's a full-time job. But definitely working with structured data has been very hard. And I find the hallucinations on numbers, on insights, it's great on open copy text. But, particularly I work with a lot of survey data. It's, you need pretty specialist tools and a lot of, clear criteria. So that can take longer than
100% agree. I've realized that it's good for if you run the data analysis first and then ask your AI to run some insights as well. You can kind of cross-check just to make sure it's on the right track, because I agree. I'm a data girl myself, and it's quite difficult with any kind of numbers.
Yeah. Yeah, and you just don't want to get them wrong too.
Exactly.
Like if it's vague stuff, it's fine. But yeah, numbers you need to write.
Gay, one more question for you. Do you consider yourself to be an AI optimist, realist, or pessimist?
Realist. I know that's a boring answer, but it's absolutely I think my natural human, like going back to my core nature, I tend to be cynical. So I have to spend a lot of time on readjusting myself either way to come to that middle point. But yeah, realist, I hope.
Now, getting into the main bit, the one thing I'm most excited to ask you about, Kay, is you speak with senior leaders across agencies, brands, and media owners every day. What is the overall sentiment or the vibe around AI right now? Is it excitement, concern, or a bit of both?
Definitely both. And you could add in probably 20 other adjectives into the mix. I think overwhelmed is the vibe, so to speak, at the moment. So definitely everyone wants to take advantage. I think that complete cynicism has gone from senior leaders. Like, it's coming, they want to make the most of it, particularly from an efficiency point of view. But the where to invest, how to invest, too early, too late. Like, I think every leader's gone through that, investing too early and getting stuck on something.
Yeah.
The amount of noise every week around a new model, we've got this week when we're recording, ChatGPT browser coming through. So we're all testing that. So I think that overwhelmed nature, and also the responsibility as leaders. So managing teams who are all freaking out because, the human nature of what will my business look like? Will I have a job? How do I keep my skills up to date? And when leaders don't always have the answer, which I think you've got to be transparent
that
about.
Uncertainty.
Yeah, but you also have to look like you have some idea of where you're heading. So I think there's a lot of stress on leaders. And I think AI at the moment, like, it's coming together, and I try to untangle this a little bit with, changing economics across the world, drive for productivity, like, it's all coming at once. And I worry sometimes AI is being seen as the lead question point rather than the change in the world and then us using. I think next year we'll be talking about AI as a tool rather than AI as the guiding light.
Yeah, so that sounds like concern to me. I guess what I'm hearing there, more than excitement.
I think it's excitement of what could be the other side, but the job to do is big. So I think they absolutely realise it will revolutionise their industry, their products, their everything. So I don't want to underplay that, because I think everyone knows everything will be different and a lot of things in a better way. It's just, it's not the promise of it's going to be a flick of a switch and you turned on and now you're running AI models to do everything. So we're in the hard work phase.
And do you think part of it is the current crop of leaders in most agencies have been dealing with people problems and agency advertising issues, and now this is a real technical challenge, and that's something that they're not as comfortable with, maybe?
There's a little bit of that. I think they've all been trying really hard to reinvent as tech companies, for a long time. So it speeds that process up. So I think that's probably a good thing. I think they've all tried to be, from a media agency point of view, more in the consulting field for a long time. And that hasn't been possible while the day-to-day tasks have been in the way. I think the other thing that gets in the way, and particularly brand side, but that flows through to agencies and then through to everyone else, is compliance and understanding what that looks like for everyone, and how to set up I think at the moment compliance is very manual. And that's, I speak to a lot of marketers and they can say the compliance time can take away any savings I'm getting from AI, particularly in creating ad campaigns,
Gotcha.
data targeting, all of it.
Yeah.
That will ease, but definitely compliance at the moment. And that risk factor is something that media agencies mightn't have been as close to some of the legal requirements. In the end, it's a good thing because it brings everyone closer to those business rules, objectives, but it is a different muscle.
Switching gears a little bit, in terms of AI and hiring, are you hearing anything about team structure and what people are they starting to hire differently?
Yeah, it's changed so quickly, which I guess isn't a novel thing that you'll be hearing on this podcast. But we do an annual talent survey in our industry, and we do it every June. So June 2024, we ask that question, and everyone's like watching but not changing. We asked again this year, and it is very different for small companies versus larger companies.
How so?
So many of the change in structure will come quicker for the big companies. Like, they've got 40 people doing similar jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that consolidation will come at people quicker. I think it's interesting being in Australia because for some of the tech companies or the publishers, they've got small teams here already. Like the big changes in numbers will be possibly overseas.
Yeah.
Some of the commercial roles are probably safer short term. Like if you're a, can I say, bloody good salesperson,
Yeah. AI
those
can't replace you.
absolutely. So I definitely think, so when we did the survey this year, there was definitely a review of entry level jobs. That was definitely the big call out of we're not necessarily cutting too many jobs yet, but we're not necessarily bringing on new people at that entry level if we can automate those sort of intern jobs. And then at the higher level, at the top senior level, we're definitely seeing how can I word this nicely? Some consolidation of those senior leadership roles, some real pressure on expensive roles.
Yeah.
But again, as I spoke about earlier, some of that's AI, some of that's just different expectations of ratios in business, the economics. So I think
The market impacts. Yeah.
yeah, and it is all blended, and I think everyone is hoping that so you get a organizational structure that's much more in the middle, which is interesting because we used to see those mid jobs go, but they're probably a little bit safer, so everyone's being stretched at a more junior level to do some more senior stuff, but also think about the things that those entry level people would have done, and how can we make sure we've got the systems in place to automate that.
So do you think it is a bit of a short-term issue? Like people are just using AI almost as an excuse?
I don't think so, but we're going to have to do something. I definitely think, because it's not just our industry. Like if you look at, the legal profession is probably the greatest example of, the sort of jobs that young lawyers come in and do, they can all be automated. It's going through case files. It's, it's writing briefing papers. But if we don't have people coming in and doing that training and understanding the basics, it's going to be a problem. But I don't know who's going to pay for that.
Yeah.
So, like going back in our industry, there were huge intern programs, training programs, cross-functional pieces. You look at the big CPG or FMCG companies, like the great trainers of marketers. It's going to be an issue down the line, and it's probably something like the industry bodies are constantly thinking about that. What's our role in that?
Well, it's interesting you say that because like Sorrell at South by Southwest talked about the fact that he thought that, the whole media planning and buying function would basically be disappearing in 2 to 3 years, which I feel like is a relatively aggressive timeline. Nothing in this industry moves in 2 or 3 years, but it is an interesting thought, and I don't necessarily think he's totally wrong. But I'd love to know if you think that there are particular roles at risk as a result of AI.
He likes a headline, and again, he's often right in the long hope. I think definitely it's probably over egging, and I guess what the definition of the tasks of a media buyer will definitely change. There will be less of them, but if you look at the automation of so many of the buying methods, whether it's within an agency or every single ad tech platform is trying to do everything for everyone.
Yeah.
If you don't have staff there that can question, can tweak, can play around with it, you're going to get the blandest work ever. And we have to be honest, optimization is definitely built in for the client, but it's also built in for the owner of those tools.
Yeah.
So, there's still going to need to be some people really questioning. I talk to a lot of tech people around how many clients actually go in, even if it's an automated model, to go in and change prompts, change settings. It's so few people. So the agencies that have, that really annoying tech guy, you need to think about that person in every role across your agency. That one who's always tinkering, breaking, playing, questioning, and, they are super wonderful and super annoying. If you don't have that person in there, you're probably going to get the same results as the agency next door.
Sorry, I was just going to jump in and say it's interesting you say that, because I'm hearing you as campaign optimizers. Potentially a lot of their work could be automated by AI, but maybe their job will change into like campaign auditors. So rather than managing, 20 campaigns, they manage 100, but checking the output of what the AI automation is optimizing against.
Yeah, and just encouraging, because there's a certain amount of experimentation built into the optimizers, but it's definitely based on history. So again, it's a bit like that, lion tamer, type, bringing in some showbiz, some pizzazz, getting into shape, making sure the experiments are broad enough, and, possibly across different tools. It's you just got to make sure it's not, we've seen in the past optimizers, just go so much for efficiency rather than effectiveness. And we need to, sometimes just put that spoke in the wheel or something, to really test it. And yeah, we'll try and think of a nicer name than an auditor.
When I grow up, I want to be an auditor.
But that is there's less people. I think that's the reality of those roles where there are a lot of people doing similar jobs. If I had to look back 5 years ago, and when I thought about what the jobs that AI would take away, it would be very much on, actually, my history. It'd be the data insights, it'd be the analytical, it'd be the
Oh gosh, don't say that. That's
well,
my job.
I know, but it's stuff that you think machines can think in that way. But it has been surprisingly, I guess, the low end of the creative side that's been, taken away quicker. And I will be very clear, it is more that, roll out 40 creatives for a social campaign, not the really big thinking side of things. But I think it has been interesting how much it's impacted a wide range of jobs. So I'm reluctant to say it's going to go just after these jobs, because I think anywhere where there are a multitude of people doing things, our industry has been quite a heavy adopter of offshoring over the last 10 years, which I guess is a bit of an indicator of some of those jobs that, can be a little bit more automated. So I don't know, the human in me worries about, we have set up financial and economic hubs in different countries, who are quite reliant on that. What happens to the teams in the Philippines, in India? So I think that responsibility of our industry of, not just our teams here, but the economics across the ecosystem we have to think about.
No, that's a great point. And one somewhat provocative question I wanted to ask you is, if your kids were entering the industry today, what roles would you steer them away from?
Oh God, it's such a hard question. Because
maybe take the positive side of it. Like, where would you encourage them to go?
I'll do a bit of both. I would encourage them to think a little bit more cross-functionally. So, again, I've sort of said lawyers are out of jobs, but that compliance policy, piece, understanding, ethics, policy, creative. So I feel like there's a new role that is a little bit more cross-functional. And the beauty of, I guess, AI and, how we learn now, that's possible. It makes it very, very hard for tertiary education to keep up.
It's interesting you bring up governance, and it's such a hot topic now when it comes to AI. And I've weirdly become a bit fascinated with the policies that are coming out of the different governments, and how different companies are approaching governance and instilling those guardrails at their companies. For the IAB specifically, what are you guys doing to influence the policy and advocacy work for government?
There's two very, and hopefully they won't be different, long-term priorities with the government. So productivity is definitely one. It's a huge driver, staying competitive in a global market, just making sure Australia is more productive, because we are sort of behind at the moment. And then there's that reducing harms, responsibility piece, and trying to make them meet in the middle without compromising that human factor. Running a big industry body who has a lot of different members, so they're not always
Quite
in
varied
alignment on this.
membership, yes.
Yeah, and that's okay, and that's quite interesting to hear in terms of those different points of view. For us, short term, because we are sort of half pregnant with privacy reform, it's understanding, as we go through the next reforms, that it's fit for purpose in an AI world. So how AI feeds into privacy, what we need to do to stay competitive without exploitative is our number one focus at the moment. Talking to the Privacy Commissioner, Productivity Commissioner, we're consultations about to start with tranche 2 of privacy reform. So that's definitely the priority. And then, trying to look at different areas that could, definitely having conversations around anything that could cause harm is top of mind. And I try to stick to my lane, because the lane can get pretty wide. So we bring it right back to advertising. One of our key pillars going into next year is what we're calling publisher vitality. So historically we haven't necessarily got as involved in the economics of media owners. It's been by default that advertising, we make the advertising ecosystem work really well, everyone thrives, but definitely the change in, which my favourite word at the moment, discovery. So how publishers are getting traffic is definitely top of mind, and then how they can monetize in this new universe. So,
well, because to your point, advertising is no longer working as well as it has been in the past.
Exactly. So globally, that is a big focus for us. So we're looking at IAB Tech Lab, which is our global standards body, is looking at models for monetization, for scraping content, etc. I know there's a lot of players in that field, but we're trying to think, how can we have open products that really allow the industry to still thrive? And that discoverability piece is it's actually one of the areas that's the same for buy and sell side. Often you have industry issues that are quite different for advertisers to publishers. There'll be different ways of operating, but that how do I get people to see my stuff is the biggest question at the moment. Like it's the most asked question, apart from, that's why I sort of at the beginning talk about AI as a topic. It's actually, this is the problem. AI is driving some of the problem, will drive some of the solutions. But, how do I build a business where people get the opportunity to see my stuff? Now, for advertisers, that will be, I'll want to flog them things. So I'm probably going to let everyone in, the agents do all their bidding, I might want some controls around it. But for media owners, it's a very different thing. So what is that value exchange if I let people scrape my content?
How often are you talking to people globally about AI? And are there trends that you're seeing globally or differences here in Australia?
So definitely. So we are lucky that we have 45 IAB chapters around the world. So there's very different takes on it. So we're constantly chatting to each other about the hot topics, and obviously AI is right up there. Looking a lot, as always, to the States, because that's where everyone is, to understand from an innovation point of view what's coming. From a governance point of view, it's incredibly interesting. Like Europe will always go harder on this stuff earlier.
Sure.
So looking at different regulatory regimes to make sure Australia can fit in. Like, so when we do talk to Canberra, if there's stuff that they're thinking about that is just completely different than the rest of the world, which can be fine, but if that's technically tricky and makes us awkward to deal with, that's something we flag pretty quickly.
Are there things like that have come up, though? Are there specific things?
Not yet. I think everyone's very early in terms of their AI regulation. Okay. Definitely has in privacy. And but there will be. I think every government is still tweaking around with their. There's a lot of sort of higher level, responsibility statements, but I don't think anyone's seen a lot of cases yet. So that's still a work in progress. But yeah, no, I think smaller markets are definitely chatting to each other around how we stay relevant.
Yeah.
The reality is our industry is more and more global, whether it's media agencies, environments where people buy, and then the tech companies underneath it. So how do we not lose our local flavour, as well as keeping our economy vibrant?
I'm going to ask you, because I know you judged a recent South by Southwest debate. The IAB is a proud sponsor of the debate club. And the topic itself was AI moves too fast for government, only the industry can regulate it. Who do you believe should take that responsibility for AI regulation in Australia?
Look, I think some things have to be government, like at the end of the day, but there is also, we do have laws. So AI is a new technology. We definitely need to create some things that understand it. But if there are things that are causing harm against consumers, against people, there are still legal mechanisms to review that, and frameworks. It's every time we have a new technology, we don't want to be completely reframing regulation and legislation. So there's stuff already there. I think what industry is really good at is creating those frameworks. There's protocols. Government will never be quick enough to really understand how we can operate. And then government's role is to go, yep, that's, as an industry, you're doing the right thing from a self-regulation point of view, or we need to step in. And historically, we've always had that in the industry.
Completely unrelated, Gay, but have you heard anything from OpenAI of joining the IAB?
Not locally. I'm heading over to a global IAB forum where we all get together once a year to have a chin wag and chat about the stuff you don't always want on emails. But I definitely, the US have had a lot more engagement with the other players, particularly as everyone is reviewing what their advertising or commerce strategy is. So they're definitely, in that ecosystem. Again, this is where local versus global markets is quite tricky, because, the model of rolling out something that works globally and probably not having huge headcounts in local markets, means there will be more decisions made at that global level.
You have an AI working group within the IAB. What are the kind of main goals, and what do you hope it achieves?
Yeah, so we do, and we have a wonderful wide sort of group of people with different both of skills and roles, which is the beauty of the IAB. You've got the annoying tech people who are like, I'm trying this out and it doesn't work, and then you've got the commercial people who are selling our dream. Yep. And then you've got product people building things. So it's a delightful place where they can all come together and that innovation piece, but also keeping each other honest. So we've got 5 pillars that we're working around that will give you a bit of a feel of where we're taking it. So number 1 is education and upskilling. That's the one thing that we get asked. We have a wonderful AI hub on our website with a whole lot of tools that are
I love it. I'll put it in the show notes because it is so resourceful.
Brilliant. And that team are constantly updating it. So then the next one is AI standards and governance. So we've talked a bit about that, both from a legal point of view, but also those protocols, how do things work? How do we make sure things can still operate in the ecosystem? Innovation and use cases. Everyone wants to see case studies. Everyone wants to know what everyone else is doing. Yeah. So we're working on that. Infrastructure and readiness. So just making sure different types of companies are ready for this and making sure they've got the teams, the tools in place to do so. And then the last one, which is, closest to my heart, they're all close to my heart, but it's around measurement, impact, and sustainability. So how do we know this stuff is helping us? How is it working? What's the environmental impact? So it's bigger questions on, is it good for the industry and good for the world?
And you kind of mentioned something in there around how different groups are keeping up. I'd love to kind of understand from your perspective. Well, we've had lots of conversations with people like Accenture. We've had conversations with big media organizations who have giant teams. How are you seeing the indies keep up?
There's a huge opportunity for the indies, and we do have a lot of conversations with the IAA. Theoretically, they've now got all the tools, the majority of the tools that the big guys, or similar tools. So there's huge opportunity there, but finding the time to do so is tricky.
Okay, I feel like they have hammers, but they haven't actually built anything with the hammers yet.
Yeah, and look, to our earlier point, they will rely on tech companies more and ad tech companies. So understanding who you're partnering with is incredibly important, and having the flexibility to change, to question, to create interoperability. I think that's going to be the trickiest bit for indies, because they're probably not going to necessarily always be able to afford the big suite that's got everything from the same company. There's such a range of indies. It's the ones that have been digitally born and think that way. I also think I'm quite interested in how the old school SEO indies reinvent, because I actually think they have the best opportunity in the world at the moment. So those performance agencies, I think, that are within the indies, they're used to change. They're used to algorithms changing.
They're very technical minded.
If I was 25, which as you can tell from my bio, I'm not, I would short term be building I'd almost buy an old SEO agency, turn it into a discovery agency. Probably AI will solve that problem in a year. So I probably only got a year to build that up and then flog it off to someone. But that being close to clients and understanding what they need in terms of discovery, I think the indies have a really big opportunity there.
Yeah.
Holcos are great, and they can do that big picture and across everything. But sometimes they might not be as close to those day-to-day problems. I also think it will, all of this will drive the growth of in-housing a little bit more, because again, those tools are available. I'm seeing a lot of young performance managers in some of the mid-sized companies who are trying to do in-housing, who have always gone, we'll do the performance stuff ourselves and then we'll get the big agencies to do the big stuff. Suddenly they're like, well, I can do programmatic in-house, or I can do bits and pieces. So I think what brands manage will look quite different. It'll always be hybrid for a lot of them. But I think the hype around, again, we see this hype cycle. So, 5, 6, 7 years ago, everything was going to be in-house. But now I think we're sort of seeing that being a little bit more of a possibility again.
Yeah, and one thing that I wanted to just call back to is because you had an interesting point about like the jobs that will stick around, and it does seem like that human element is of increasing relevance, and the soft skills that maybe that's something our industry can start to take an even more important role in, of really developing those top soft skills.
Absolutely, and it's a commercial. It's the the ability to storytell and sell, and it's the ability to and make friends is probably over-egging it. I can hear my partner go, "Oh my God, you capitalists! You pretend you're friends with everyone, but you're just selling." But there is
it's relationships, yeah,
exactly, relationships. Yeah. And my number one tip for anyone young in the industry is to make friends with your peers. We hear a lot about mentoring. Us old people will be irrelevant in a few years. You want to be hanging out and having a really good peer network, that as you go through the next 10 years in your career and everything changes, who are your people, who have got your back, who you can bounce ideas through. That is the number one thing I would say. Make friends, make connections in a meaningful way, not in a facile networking, swapping cards way or whatever we do now. But who are your people?
I love that. And Gay, I think you really wrapped it up well, and that's so spot on. The network is of utmost importance, and lucky to call you as a close confidant in my network. So thank you so much. You've been just a wealth of knowledge, and we're so lucky to have you join us today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Oh, absolute pleasure.
Nathan, what did you think about that chat with Gay?
I was hoping for a big gotcha moment, and I don't feel like we got her to kind of like, give us any exciting news, which is not unexpected. How was it for you?
Yeah, you know what I found so interesting is because the caliber of people, the talent that she speaks to, a lot of those senior leaders, they are feeling the same way as most of us. The period of uncertainty, of unsure about how AI will disrupt our roles, how it will impact hiring, how the jobs we do day in day out might change. So I thought
Yeah.
that was quite insightful in terms of her feedback from the industry. But there is that disruption that's currently going on, but there's that area of opportunity, like that excitement, but almost like a nervous energy from leaders,
Yeah.
which I found to be quite interesting. We're in the messy middle right now.
Well, funny enough, speaking of messy middle, I thought it was interesting that she was talking about, the challenges on both the kind of gray end and the, diaper end of our industry.
That's definitely one way to explain it.
Both of those parts of the business are experiencing challenges in terms of the number of roles. And she was quite willing to talk about that. And I thought it's great to hear somebody mention it. And then also talk about how she expects that we're going to see more and more of these kind of planning and buying roles, echoing the Martin Sorrell comment, continue to be where we're going to start to automate more and more.
Yeah, for sure. And, it's interesting because I thought it would be more of a conversation around like ad ops and like campaign operations and optimization that she would call out as being perhaps quite automated and replaced. But when we did bring up that SMS quote, she, was quite aligned with media planning and buying will take a dramatic shift.
I would think that if you asked her specifically about ad ops, it would probably fall into the same bucket of things there are a lot of people doing relatively similar roles. I think those are going to be the jobs that are going to be the hardest hit.
Yeah, and it is a hard question, right? Because if you were to ask anyone, like, what's the one role that you think would be replaced by AI? It's actually quite a lot. And not necessarily replaced by AI. I should be careful around that language. Automated to the point of reducing headcount so that there's not as many roles available for that specific role.
Yeah.
I do think we will see a bit of disruption in our industry. I thought it would happen this year. I'd be interested to see how it plays out into next year in the media world. But to her point, holdcos are going to probably see the biggest hit because they do have such a quantity of staff doing very similar roles. But yeah, it's an interesting time. It is the messy middle, but I know she's a realist with a little dose of cynicism, but I'm trying to remain in the optimist seat because there's so much good that can come from it.
We talked a lot about the roles that are going to be most stable are those that have people at the heart of them. And to be honest, a lot of the people, most of the people I have met in this industry have very strong people skills. We tend to probably overhire for that, if I'm honest, but maybe that's beneficial for us in the long run. Or maybe it's a bunch of people like you and me who are very people who are just hoping that we don't get automated away. I'm not sure which one it is, but one or the other. I don't have a horrible long-term view of where the industry's headed. I'm pretty confident myself.
Yeah, I am optimistic because I think back of I've made some incredible relationships during my time in the industry, and I've been in Australia for over 9 years now. And so just looking at the people I met when I was, a junior account manager, new to media, trying to understand what was going on. And I've had someone actually reach out to me earlier this year when after I went through my redundancy, just to reach out and say, hey, I've been thinking of you. It's been ages since we last, met and worked together, but I always remember you as being, super friendly and, great work ethic. And just to have that community of relationships with people that you don't necessarily see or work with all the time, it does go to show that people skills and interpersonal communication are so vital in this industry. It's a very people-oriented industry, that's for sure.
I think it was a great chat, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
Thank you to all of our listeners, and we would so appreciate it if you could like, share, and subscribe these episodes.
Thanks for everybody for listening, and remember, the intelligence might be artificial, but the wins are real. See you next time.
This episode was brought to you by TestChimp. TestChimp is a web developer's best friend. TestChimp uses deep runtime context to automate your testing workflows, generate scenarios, write scripts, and fix bugs all in one place. Stop wasting time and start shipping quality code faster. Bugs suck, but finding bugs doesn't have to with TestChimp.